Okay friends, one of the first things we have to do to get started on our job is to safely raise and support the front of the vehicle so the wheel's off the ground. After that, remove all of your lug nuts and then remove the wheel. Now that we have the wheel off of here, we have a nice clear view of our tie rod ends. Let's go ahead and spray down this area with some penetrant spray. This is going to help remove everything. The next thing that I like to do is remove the sleeve right here. To do that, I'm going to have to loosen up my 2 pinch bolts right along there. We can loosen these up, and then we'll be able to spin this to de-adjust the tie rods until they come apart. Now that we've got both those bolts free, the next thing that I want to do is grab onto this sleeve right here, and I just want to break it free. You want to make sure you use some penetrant on this. I'm going to work it back and forth. Once it's free, we can continue. Let's come over to this outer tie rod end. We're going to remove the cotter pin. Remove your outer tie rod end nut. Let's just leave that on a couple threads. Separate the tie rod end from your knuckle. The next thing we're going to do is fully unscrew our tie rod end sleeve, and we want to make sure we count the turns as we remove this. 1, 2, and so on. There it is, friends. The next thing we want to do is coat our tie rod end threads with some copper never sees. Let's start our tie rod end sleeve on here, just 1 or 2 threads. Just enough to hold it on there. Let's get our outer tie rod end on. We're going to start this on just 2 threads, same amount as it took for the inner. All right, now we're just going to thread this on the same amount of threads as it took to remove the original. Now we can continue on to taking our outer tie rod end and put it in the knuckle. Start that nut on there. Let's torque this to 46 foot-pounds. The next thing we want to do is line up these slots on the castle nut to the hole that's in the tie rod end. Make sure it's lined up. If it isn't, continue tightening until the very next slot is. Make sure you install your cotter pin. Pin that right over. Okay, before we go ahead and snug up our tie rod adjustment sleeve here, the next thing that we want to do is ensure that our steering wheel is straight. We're going to come back down here, and we're going to try to make sure that our rotor is sitting pretty much parallel to the body of the vehicle itself. If it looks like it's towed out, meaning the front side of it's kind of facing out and away from the vehicle, you're just going to turn this adjustment sleeve counterclockwise. If it seems like it's turned too far in, turn it clockwise. We're going to continue on to making sure that we have the tie rods parallel to the actual knuckle here. You want to make sure that it's not sitting all crooked and binding up that ball joint, and then all the way on the inner as well. You want to make sure that that's parallel to the center link. All right, now that we have it lined up, let's continue on with our clamps. When we put on the clamps, you can see that you have this slot along the adjustment sleeve itself. You want to make sure that you don't have your clamps lined up with that like this. You want to make sure that you have it in the opposite position, just like that, and then of course make sure that it doesn't touch up against anything while you're steering. Let's double check, make sure they're nice and snug. Perfect. Let's get our tire up on here. Start on all your lug nuts, snug them up, and then we'll torque them. Okay, once you have them all started on there, go ahead and get your wheels safely back on the ground, and then we'll torque all of the lug nuts to 120 foot-pounds. Torqued. All right, we got the truck all back together. What's left to do now? Safely take your vehicle for a road test down to your local alignment shop.